Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Lara Ryan, and this is Complete Test Success. We are focusing on academic IELTS writing task 1 today. So basically, I have a question for you guys. I'll share it with you in a moment. It's a process question. And what I want to do is work with you to produce an essay, to produce an answer for that question. So the idea will be together we will write the essay, but I'm going to ask you to write each part of the essay, kind of move through the essay one step at a time. You're going to share your writing with me. So in the comments, you'll share your writing. I'll be able to point out what mistakes you're making. And that's the information you need to improve your scores. So that's basically, a teacher can show you what to do, and then a teacher can get you to do it and point out what things you're doing wrong. So I have loads of videos on YouTube and Facebook about what to do in the writing test, how to write an essay. So what I'm doing in these live streams is just giving you feedback, making sure you understand what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and giving you advice about how to make sure you understand what you need to do to improve your score. So that's essentially what we're doing today. I have a lovely message here from Mashi. Hello, I've done my IELTS test and I got a 6. Thanks, your channel was great help for me during my presentation time. Thank you again. You're more than welcome. So it sounds like that was the score you needed. So if that's the case, then well done. Congratulations. That's very good news. Okay, so let's take a look at this question here. So this question says, the diagram below shows the various stages involved in producing whiskey from malt barley, and there are a full 12 steps. Now, to be honest, processes are one of the easier question types because you're just following step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and so on across the question until you get to the end. So it's one of the less complicated ones. Having said that, the overview can be a bit challenging and some people find it difficult to put the overview together. But really the overview is the most difficult part. So with the process, with the paraphrase, we're just going to rewrite what that question statement says in our own words. And that's the first step that we're going to take today. So just to clarify for anyone who's not familiar, what we do in the paraphrase is we take this little sentence from the top. The diagram below shows the various stages involved in producing whiskey from malt. We take that and we rewrite it in our own words. So that's the first thing I want you guys to do for me today. I want you to rewrite that, share it with me in the comments, and I'll be able to tell you if you are making any mistakes. This particular question about whiskey, I know like alcohol is illegal in some countries. So, it's unlikely we would see this particular topic in the real IELTS test, but nevertheless, it is the type of thing that we would see in terms of, a process is shown, there are different steps, the number of steps, and, how we would write the essay is the same. So nevertheless, the process or the process that we need to go through to write the essay is going to be the same. Okay. So that's what I want you to do. Write your paraphrase, share it with me in the comments, and then I will correct any mistakes you're making. I'll take somebody's writing, I'll add it to the screen, and then we'll move on to the next part of the essay. Okay, so that's the first step. Besides that, if anyone has any questions for me, if anybody has any difficulties that they want to discuss in terms of this question, jump in, type your questions in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer those for you too as we are going through this essay. Hi, Strawberry. The diagram presented the different stages involving the production of whiskey from malt barley. Okay, so the most important stuff is there. The most important stuff is there. The most important information is there. But there are some grammar mistakes. So you're first in. So I'm going to take yours and I'm going to add it to the screen here. Okay, let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, so the first thing that we would notice is the fact that you didn't put a full stop at the end. So I'm going to start with that. Put the full stop at the end. You spelled barley incorrectly. Barley is spelled B-A-R-L-E-Y. Now, there are sometimes you'll make spelling mistakes and it's just unavoidable. You know, there's nothing you can do if you don't know how to spell the word. But when the word is coming from the question, you know, we should at least get those right, because we don't even know how to spell the word. We just need to copy it. So just be careful with that. Now, the diagram presented. Presented is in the past, but the diagram isn't in the past. The diagram is, it exists now. We're looking at it now. So it would have to be that the diagram presents. The different stages, and we are now, you're using a gerund, but we need to say involved in, not a gerund, in the production of whiskey from malt barley. Now, what a lot of students will do, so those are just some small grammar mistakes, but what a lot of students will do is they will try desperately not to use any of the words from the question. And I think this is where Strawberry is doing very well, because Strawberry is being honest about their own language ability. So we have the word diagram and the word diagram, that's the same. The various stages, we have the different stages, so stages is the same. Involved in, I copied that bit. Producing whiskey, the production of whiskey from malt barley, from malt barley. So you can see all of those words have been copied. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 words from the question have been copied into our paraphrase. Now, would it be better if we didn't copy any of the words from the question? Well, yes, it would be better. But what you have to do is you have to be realistic. Is like, is your English enough? Is your English good enough to change every word in the question? And the answer to that question for most people will be no. So what happens then if you try to change more words than you can? It's going to be unclear, or perhaps the meaning is going to be different. And that's a bigger problem. So if you need to copy some words from the question, that's exactly what you should do. Change as much as you can, and then copy the words that you are unable to change. Okay, so good job, Strawberry. So that brings us to the next part of our essay. We need to write the overview. So that's your next task. Write the overview, share it with me in the comments, and I'll have some feedback for you on that. Hi, Aman. So Aman says, the diagram illustrates, good, the production of whiskey using malt barley via multiple steps. It is a 12-step man-made process. So you're kind of moving on to the overview here. So in the paraphrase, just keep it with exactly what the question says. Don't start adding extra information. And then in the overview, we're going to begin with overall. So you can say, you know, overall, it is a 12-step man-made process. So that could be part of our overview. Okay, so what I would do is in this first sentence that you sent to me, the diagram illustrates the production of whiskey using malt barley, full stop, and that would be it. And I would just remove the other stuff and keep that information for the overview after this. Hi, Tin. The following, no, we don't say the following. And I know the question says the diagram below, but we don't copy the word below because the diagram isn't below our essay. So we just remove that part. So you could just say the process presents. Well, it's not that the process presents, it's the diagram shows us a process. But you're after using the word process instead of diagram. Those are different things. So the process is how to do something, whereas the diagram, the image, whatever you want to call it, is what we're looking at here. The different states, state is not the same as stage. The different stages, and then remove of, the different stages used in manufacturing whiskey, and you've misspelled from, F-R-O-M, from malt barley. So this is what I was talking about earlier on when we were looking at Strawberry's paraphrase, which is on the screen here, is Strawberry copied quite a few words from the question, and that's actually better than the mistakes you've made here, because now process doesn't mean diagrams, states doesn't mean stages. So you're making mistakes that you don't need to make because you're forcing yourself to change more words than you can. So change as much as you can, don't change more than you can. AD, the diagram provides key information about the different steps of whiskey production out of malt barley. No. Okay, so the diagram provides key information about the different steps of producing whiskey out of malt barley. So producing whiskey is the action of doing it, rather than just the concept itself. Okay, and strawberries in quickly with the overview. Overall, there are 12 stages in the production process, starting from growing the plants until it ends by becoming a product that can be consumed and displayed to the public. I'm going to take out the displayed part because it doesn't say anything about that in the diagram. And earlier on, a man said, use the term man-made. So if we see earlier on, there was man-made was written here. So I'm going to add that to strawberries overview as well. Okay. So let me add this in here. Okay. So overall, there are 12 stages in the production process. Just delete that space. Starting from, let's say, starting with growing the plants and ending with it becoming a product that can be consumed, and that's enough. I'm going to remove the part about being displayed and the part about the public, but I do want to add man-made somewhere. It doesn't really fit in very obviously. There are 12 stages in, maybe in this man-made process. Let's do that. Yeah, and that's good. And the IELTS exam is not as strict before. They're not as strict now as they were before in terms of what you need to do to write an acceptable overview for a process question. So previously, people were always concerned about, have they done enough to get a band 7? But now it's a lot more straightforward. This here is definitely good enough for a 7. We don't need to worry about it. I did want to include the extra man-made part from a man's writing, because I think it's good just to have, if you can add a bit more, that's always a good idea. We don't want to go too long. We don't want to write 40, 50, 60 words, but the more descriptive you can be, the more certain you are that you're going to be getting the highest possible score. Okay, so here's a man back again. Overall, it is a 12-step man-made process. We need a comma after step, and it's a hyphenated 12-step, 12-step, comma, man-made process, starting with the production of barley. Production of barley would really the growing of barley, I would say. Starting with growing barley and ending with, so you need to follow the same structure. So it's like man-made process, comma, starting with this and ending with that. So that's within the same structure. So the reason that you needed a gerund when you said starting is the same reason you need a gerund within ending. It's the same structure following on from process. And ending with a commercialized product ready to consume. Commercialized, not necessarily a commercialized product. So let's just, and ending with a product ready to be consumed. Let's just do that. Okay, but all the information you have is there. The main thing we're talking about is little vocab and grammar mistakes. So clearly you know how to write an overview. Okay, so in the process, we need to write 2 body paragraphs. And basically body paragraph 1 is about the first, it doesn't have to be exactly half, but roughly describe the first half. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly 6 steps. You might end up writing 5 steps in one and 7 in the other, the other way around. So it doesn't have to be exactly that. But I think just to make things easier for our lesson, let's let's just say describe the first 6 steps. Okay. So let's just go with that for now. Body paragraph 1, describe the first 6 steps. And I'll get you guys to write that for me and share it in the comments. So we already have body paragraph 1 finished. We have our paraphrase and our overview. Let's jump into the next one. And I'll continue giving feedback then to the other students who I haven't looked at yet. Okay. English films and series. Overall, the process consists of 3 main stages. Oh, I don't know. Like it clearly says 12 stages. So you're trying to create these extra main stages that don't really, I don't know. Collecting followed by preparation and distribution. I don't know. I wouldn't, because the problem then is you're kind of creating something that the diagram doesn't show, and you're trying to group them into collecting, which would be the first 2, and then preparation, which would be the next, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then distribution will be the last 3. I see what you're doing. Do you know what? It's okay. Do you know what? I think it's okay, but I wouldn't recommend it to most students because it's just it's becoming a bit more complicated. And if this is the way you always approach an overview, then there will be a process that comes along and you can't divide it into subsections. So yeah, and it wouldn't really be 3 main stages. It would be, I don't think stages is the right word. That semicolon or that colon wouldn't be used correctly there either. It is a complex one requiring specialized equipment for execution. 1 doesn't really refer to process here. So you'd have to use, it's a complex process requiring specialized equipment for execution. I'm okay with the specialized equipment, but a complex one, I wouldn't go with that either. So I think there are easier ways to write the overview. And I think like if you just look at what we have here, the number of stages, where it started, where it ended, and then a few extra bits thrown in, like, it's a man-made process. It's a linear process. It requires a specialized machinery, or what did you say? Specialized equipment, like adding all that stuff in as extras then, just to make sure that we get that high score. Yeah, so I think you might be making it more complicated than it needs to be. Vang, overall, there are multiple steps in the stages. No. So a step and a stage is the same thing. So if you look at this question here, there are 12 steps or 12 stages. A step and a stage is the same thing. We can also call them phases. So steps, stages, and phases. But you're confusing the word stage for process. So overall, there are multiple steps in the process, but we can give the number of steps. So instead of saying there are multiple, say specifically 12, because that's what it shows us in the diagram. From the malt is planted. Well, let's say from the malt being planted, and just say malt barley as well. That's the term they used in the question. So just to make sure. So from the malt barley being planted, through various processing phases to the whiskey being consumed. Okay. Dear teacher, do we need to count how many stages in the overview? You don't have to, but it's pretty much one of the easiest pieces of information to include, especially here where it's literally written down in front of us. So I definitely would, yep. Okay. Overall, the process the process doesn't undergo 12 steps. There are 12 steps in the process. Or you could say the malt barley undergoes 12 steps, like that. So let's just change this. Overall, the process has 12 steps, starting with harvesting the malt barley and ending with, ending with consumption. Because if you say ending with delivery and consumption, well, it didn't end with delivery and consumption. It ended with consumption. There was delivery, trade, and then consumption. The problem then is we could potentially end up with a band 5 for task achievement if we start to put specific details into our overview. So we're trying to avoid being too specific in our descriptions, where we're saying the number of stages, we're saying where it started and ended. That's kind of acceptable, but going beyond that could result in a lower score. So just to be sure that we don't end up in that situation, I'd recommend avoiding that. English and films, can you check mine too? Yep, I looked at that already. I've seen this structure in the Cambridge books. Yeah, so the sample essays in the Cambridge books, generally speaking, they don't really make life easier for students, because they're not done in a very structured way. I would generally recommend students to completely ignore those sample essays that you would find in the Cambridge IELTS books. The Cambridge IELTS books are great, especially for reading and listening. I don't think you could improve your scores without them. But those sample essays are quite misleading. And, it's something that, most teachers would just pretty much ignore. And when I'm speaking about them, it's generally because I have a student who is in some way confused about what they need to do, because they're using those sample essays in the Cambridge books as the basis for what they should do. Yeah, so I've seen them cause confusion a lot. So I would say just ignoring them would be easier, make your life a bit easier. So overall, there are multiple stages in the process, from the malt being planted through various processing. Okay, so we looked at that one already. Okay, and here's Strawberry with the first attempt at body paragraph 1. I see you have another one down here. There must be some changes made. Okay, in the process, it starts by growing. No, the process starts by growing. So in the process, the first stage is, but we cannot have in the process and then use the word it to refer to the thing that you just mentioned. So if you want to introduce the topic like in the process, the next subject, like the subject in the sentence, can't be it, because it is the thing that you just mentioned already. We would never do that. We would just say the process starts with, or starts with, the process starts with growing. So yeah, only use that way to introduce a sentence in the process if the next part is going to be something else. If the subject of the sentence is going to be, the first step is, or something different. So the process starts with growing the malt barley, harvesting the malt barley, so it's uncountable, then preparing it inside a machine to be mashed and fermented until it reaches a 2-stage distillation system. Okay. Oh yeah, and that obviously makes sense. But it's very short, and this is quite a common problem in process essays. Is you can get through the steps really, really quickly, and technically then you've mentioned everything that you need to mention, but you end up with a very short essay. And then if you're trying to show your ability to, to show a wide range of vocab and a wide range of grammar, and to show that you can use it all accurately, you're not really giving yourself that opportunity with such a short essay. So basically, you're going to have one sentence for the first 7 steps and another sentence for the rest of it. So your body paragraphs, you need to flesh them out a bit. In a normal essay where we're writing about a graph, I would recommend that you aim for about 180 words. Process questions can often be have less information. So, writing an essay that's a bit shorter is fine, but I would still say you're aiming for like 160 or so. So that, my main concern there is it's quite short. And first of all, barley is grown and harvested before it is used as a raw material for the production process. In the following step, it is being mashed. No, just it is mashed. It is mashed, not being mashed. We just want to use present simple for present simple for process questions. But what you will find is that you're using a lot of passive structures. As you can see here, it is grown, it is harvested, it is mashed. So you're right to use passive structures. But we would just use present simple for most of the essay. Okay, so I see you have 2 parts to your answer there, Aman. So I'm just going to take yours, add it to the screen, and then I'll make the necessary changes. So this is our body paragraph 1. Okay. Okay, so first of all, barley is grown and harvested before it is used as a raw material for the production process. In the following step, comma, it is mashed using a machine, and then it is gone through a fermentation, just it goes through. So this time it's an active structure because it's the barley that goes through the fermentation process, not somebody. It's not that somebody does that to it, it's that it is the one doing that thing. So it goes through a fermentation process. So we have harvesting. So there was that step number 3 where preparation. So let's say in the following step, it goes into a machine for preparation. That's quite vague. And is then mashed using a machine. And then okay, so you used then already. Let me change that. And is subsequently mashed using a machine. And then it goes through a fermentation process, just to make sure we have everything included. Okay, good. In the 6th step, and again, comma, the fermented barley, and again, we need an active structure here, goes through a 2-step distillation process. Okay, so okay, let's leave that. I'm gonna, in the next step, distilled barley is aged and subsequently bottled. Yes. Let's take that as the start of our next body paragraph. So just give me a moment to get this tidied up. And let's call this body paragraph 2. So here we're describing stages 8 to 12. Okay, so we can use what you've written as the start. In the next step, the distilled barley is aged and subsequently bottled. Okay. Maybe in the next steps, because that was 2 of them. Okay. So we're doing well. So your next task then is to write the body paragraph 2. So let me just change my instructions here. So write the second body paragraph. We're doing well. We're doing well. We're getting through it relatively quickly. Considering that we're all working together and we're taking turns looking at everyone's writing. So we're only 30 minutes in and we're not far from the end at all. So very good work so far. Okay. Shouldn't task 1 be a max of 150 words? Then I have to make it less than 150. No. It says you should write at least 150. So if you write less than 150, that means you didn't do what you need to do. But if you write an essay that's only 150 words, it's difficult to get a high task achievement score because you're not going to have enough information. In the past, there used to be a penalty. So if you didn't write 150, so let's say, for example, if you wrote 140 words, they would calculate your task achievement score. So let's say, for example, if you got a 7 for task achievement, and they'd go -1 because it was shorter than 150. So they used to have a penalty for shorter essays. They don't have a penalty anymore, but it's still difficult to get a high task achievement score if you're not being descriptive enough, and it's difficult to get high vocab and grammar scores if you're not showing range. So no, the 150 word limit is the minimum, not the maximum. The packed whiskey transports, so again, it would have to be passive this time, is transported on a delivery truck to the market for trade, where it is ready for people to consume. Yeah, might be a bit short, but yeah, let's take that. Okay, I'm going to say packaged instead of packed. It's just a more appropriate synonym. The packaged whiskey. How have we been spelling whiskey? W-I-H-S-K-E-Y. Now, is transported. So this time it has to be passive because, it's the drivers who are transporting it. So the driver transports the whiskey, or the whiskey is transported by the driver. And then we say on a delivery truck to the market. Maybe like the question shows a picture of a bar, so let's do that. Two bars for trade, where it is ready for people to consume. Fair enough. A little bit short, I would say, but we've done what we need to do. It's all there. Okay, so let me add that to the other screen. Let's make this a bit shorter so we can see everything together. All right, so how long is that? There's no word count on this app, so just give me a second. I'll add it to another document off screen and just see what it comes to. It looks a bit short. 132 words. Yeah, so that's too short. That wouldn't be great for our score. So we would need to make that a bit more descriptive. I'll take a look at it in a moment if we have time, and see how we would add to that. So yeah, that would be my main concern at the moment. It's quite short. All right, let's have a look at the other comments here. In the next step, the distilled barley is stored to be aged, then using a bottling machine to be bottled. Next step, the distilled barley is stored to be aged, then using a bottling machine, it is bottled, and then transported on a truck to be delivered to a trade center to be finally consumed by customers. Yeah, that all works. So there were a few things that I changed. So I actually have an essay that I've written for this. So instead of trying to alter this one, this is very good, but like I said, too short. So give me a moment now. Let me find the essay I've written for this. Okay, so this one I've written is 162 words, so not incredibly long either, but still just that extra bit longer compared to the one that we put together on screen. All right, and again, let me just make it all a bit smaller here so I can try and see it all on screen. I'm not going to read it out, but you guys can kind of take a look at that there. There you go. So that should be all. You should be able to see all of that there. So that's the essay I've written for this one. Not that there's any extra information. It's not that we missed anything important. Everything we needed was there in the essay that we wrote together. So this is the one we did together. But in mine, I've just managed to stretch it out a bit more to get a few more words out of it, rather than going through each of the steps so briefly and then ending up with an essay that's too short. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything we need to do for today. If anyone has any questions, go ahead in the comments. If not, we'll finish up there. As usual, I will have another live stream next week, most likely Wednesday or Thursday, but I just need to kind of see how my schedule is going next week and decide later this week or next week. Also, for any of you looking to join my course, if you needed a bit more one-on-one support, I have courses where I can help you improve your scores. Let me just find the link there and I'll share it with you. I think the link is in the video description anyway, but I'll just share it again here. So yeah, if you're interested on one-on-one support, there's the information about my courses, or you can just email me at lar@completetestsuccess.com. Aman, sir, I followed your instructions and managed to get 7.5 band in listening. Good. 7 in writing and speaking. Fantastic. And 6.5 in writing. My aim is to improve writing to 7 bands minimum. Yep, that's good. So you're very, very close. Just be aware the easiest scores to improve are going to be task achievement and coherence and cohesion, but it depends why you're getting a 6.5. You know, it might be the situation where you're already getting 7 for task achievement and task response, 7 for coherence and cohesion, 7 for vocab, and then 6 for grammar. And if that was your situation, then the grammar would be the easiest one to improve. So it just depends on where you're going wrong. You know, you're still there, but it could still be quite a bit of work to get you up to that 7. So best of luck with that. Like I said, I do have courses, so reach out if you want more hands-on support with that. Your exam is on Saturday. Do you think I can get 7? I mean, you definitely have the language ability. You know, you're doing in terms of your language skills, you're doing everything very well. Just be aware of the mistakes that I made. So like there will be a recording of this live stream on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page once we stop now in a minute. So I would say go back and listen to the specific grammar and vocab mistakes I mentioned. Try to learn from those. Any of the mistakes in terms of, you know, your writing was quite brief. You needed to develop it more fully. If you got a process question, that could be an issue. Yeah, so I mean, just learn from the mistakes that I've pointed out and try to improve your scores that way. But yeah, you certainly seem like you have the language ability already, which means you're most of the way there already. And yeah, best of luck. Hopefully everything goes your way. Yeah, so let's finish up there. Well done to all of you participating. Some really good work there today. See you next week. Take care. Bye.